The U.S. is working to get Israel exempted from the universal rules.
I tagged her in this, so you can go back and watch her whole video, and please do. It's really important. We need to draw attention to this, and at the end, we can talk about what we can do. This is insanity. So right now, U.S. and Israeli diplomats are trying to lobby their Swiss counterparts to not hold a convention in Switzerland to confront the war crimes that Israel is committing with the backing of the United States. You guys, I understand that it's exhausting to be outraged about things constantly, but this is something to be fucking outraged about. What is the point of having the Geneva Convention? Seriously, what is the point of having international law? What is the point of having the UN? If the UN is toothless and international law doesn't apply to Israel and doesn't apply to the United States, then what the fuck are they there for? You have made a mockery of international law, which isn't new. And here's the thing. I need you guys to connect the dots with this as well, okay? One of the reasons why the US doesn't feel the need to stop Israel from committing mad war crimes every single fucking day is because the US officials never got held accountable for their war crimes. A lot of times we focused on Trump, which, good, he is a criminal. Let's not get it twisted. But one of the reasons why Trump was able to carry out some of the shit that he did is because Bush was never held accountable. Is because the Bush administration was never held accountable. I can't even count how many officials in the Bush administration got away with their war crimes. Never got held accountable. No, not only did they not get held accountable for their war crimes, Bush got rehabilitated. He's besties with Michelle Obama. They sit together and they share candy. He's besties with Ellen. They go to baseball games together. War criminal. He should be in jail. So when you're surprised that Trump didn't get held accountable for trying to do a coup and over fucking turn the results of the election, one of the reasons for that is they don't want to hold a powerful person accountable. Because if you hold one powerful person accountable, then you might have to hold them all accountable. And the elites protect the elites. The plutocrats protect the plutocrats. They don't want any accountability for the powerful. And then they have the nerve to talk about the fucking rule of law. The rule of law. We need to talk about the rule of law. People and nobody is above the law. Except for rich people are above the law. Powerful people are above the law. Apparently Netanyahu is above the law. Joe Biden is above the law, apparently. And yet, they want to cry about Putin. They want to cry about Putin. Oh my gosh, and Putin, and he's committing war crimes in Ukraine, and we gotta fight for democracy, and blah, 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 blah. Shut up! You don't care about democracy, because if you did care about democracy, you would be holding the Israeli regime accountable for the fucking genocide they're carrying out on innocent Palestinian civilians. Democracy is not going out of your way to try to keep people off the ballot who want to run against Joe Biden. Democracy is not ignoring the will of your own people when they say stop the fucking genocide. Democracy is not criminalizing the press. Why the fuck is Julian Assange still in jail? For the great crime of exposing war crimes? Democracy is not approving weapons sales to Israel, bypassing the authority of Congress. And this is not to okay what Putin is doing and what Russia is doing, so don't get it twisted. I know that there are right-wing, Trump-loving simps and tankies on the left who pretend that Putin is based and it doesn't matter that he invaded Ukraine and killed a bunch of people. No, what's happening in Ukraine is fucking hideous. And Russia's imperial invasion into Ukraine and the massacring of innocent civilians is not fucking okay. What I am saying is you don't get to sit there and lecture the international community and the American people about human rights and democracy as you're okaying and financially backing the atrocities being carried out by the IOF. And then not only are you doing that, but then you're trying to interfere with people who are calling for accountability via the Geneva Conventions and saying that that shouldn't happen. In her video, which again, watch, she talks about how US representatives and diplomats are claiming that a Geneva Convention cannot be brought up because holding a conference would give the impression that we're targeting Israel. Okay, you don't get to be exempt from everything. What do you mean targeting Israel? What you're saying is Israel doesn't have to be held accountable for anything. They are above the law. Hey, if you hold a convention in which you're calling out Israel for their war crimes and holding them accountable, well, that might give people the impression that Israel did something bad. They did! Why do they get to be exempt? And why is the United States exempt? And here's the other thing. By doing this kind of fucking shit that you guys are always doing on the world stage, you are making the American people less safe, okay? You want to talk about safety, the American people, national security. You know what makes Americans unsafe? Treating the world like they are your football and you can just kick them the fuck around, not respect human rights, and then think that there aren't going to be people in other countries that start to fucking hate us and want revenge. And you know what happens when revenge happens? It gets carried out on innocent civilians in America. You think that any of the war criminals that are in charge of this country were damaged or hurt by what happened on 9/11? No, it was innocent civilians that got hurt on 9/11. It's a sick cycle because what happens is the United States government does some fuckery on the world stage and then people retaliate or do terrorist attacks on innocent civilians in the US, and then the people that are in power, that are in charge of this country, who inspired the massacres in the first place and enabled the terrorism, then get to profit off the deaths of the innocent civilians by enriching themselves through weapons contracts. And the cycle just continues and continues and continues. And then also they get to send your sons and daughters somewhere in fucking Nebraska to go die because they don't want to send their fucking kid. None of this is for your safety. If you're American, none of this is for your safety. They don't give a fuck about you. They want the serfs of America to just keep being ATM machines for them while we shell out our American tax dollars so they can commit war crimes abroad and then enable terrorism from the IOF and from Netanyahu and then get on the world stage and lecture people about democracy and human rights. And then they're all, why is America becoming so unstable? Why are Americans so mad? Americans are mad because we're tired of hearing you guys yak about democracy and then ignore your own people. We're tired of you decimating other countries. And by the way, if you're a conservative and you think that's somehow based, when they go and wreck other countries, it's not for your benefit, okay? It's for the fucking corporations. It's for the 1%. They're not doing shit for you. That's why you live on welfare somewhere in fucking Tennessee, Brian. Meanwhile, millions and millions of Americans live in fucking poverty because you guys are more concerned with making sure that you use the fucking police state to protect property and to protect the rich. You don't give a fuck that your citizens can't afford food. You don't give a fuck that we can't afford healthcare. You don't give a fuck that we can't afford houses. We are mad because we're tired of the 1% profiting off the backs of workers in this country, using it to enrich weapons manufacturers, and then have the minerals to look the American people in the eye and tell them you can't cancel their student debt. You can't pass a living wage for them. In fact, you can't do anything for the American people because of the parliamentarian and the filibuster. Hey, quick question. Where was the restraint of the parliamentarian and the filibuster when you just approved billions of dollars in weapons without congressional approval? Just continuing to fiddle while Rome burns. This shit is unsustainable. You think you're going to be able to sustain this shit? You're not. The US and Israel are not fucking above international law. And the more you commit war crimes and the more you act like you're above international law, you are going to be taken less seriously. You make this country and the world less safe with your fucking impunity. We cannot let them get away with everything that the US officials got away with after the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. We cannot let them get away with it. There must be accountability. There must be war crimes charges. Societies fall apart when people don't trust their leadership. And this society is falling apart because of fucking you guys. No one trusts you because we shouldn't trust you. And the world shouldn't trust us. And nobody should fucking trust the IOF or Netanyahu. I could continue on this rant, but this video is getting long, okay? So what I need you guys to do is start contacting your representatives. Call your representatives every day and tweet at them and demand ceasefire now. That's the fucking bare minimum. And demand that the United States stop shielding Israel from accountability when it comes to war crimes. There needs to be a Geneva Convention. Don't let anybody make you feel like your voice is not valid. All of those tactics that people do to try to distract from what's happening or invalidate what's happening to the people of Gaza. Things like, oh, well, where were you during the Syrian civil war? Where were you during genocide on Yemen? All of that, where were you and why are you talking about this now, is just a tactic to get you to feel like you shouldn't have anything to say about the genocide in Gaza, that you should just look away and ignore it. That somehow the American people should not be speaking out about what's happening to the Palestinians because there's been previous wars where horrific shit happened to people around the world and you weren't out in the streets protesting protesting that. Therefore, your voice doesn't matter. You're not allowed to talk about this. No, that's not how it works. Just because somebody might have been in elementary school when the invasion of Iraq happened doesn't mean now that in 2024, those of us who are paying attention and see what's happening shouldn't speak out about it. Previous war crimes and genocides or even atrocities that are happening across the world now doesn't excuse what the Israeli regime is doing to the people of Gaza right now and the occupied West Bank, might I add. And bringing awareness to it and advocating for a free Palestine just because somebody may not have known about it in the past is good and something everyone should be doing, Diane. Protest. They want us to ignore what's happening and move on. We cannot move on. If there is no consequences for the Netanyahu regime, for the war crimes that Israel is carrying out and that the U.S. is backing them up and enabling them and providing the weapons for, then there is no rule of law. Then we need to just scrap the Geneva Conventions and we need to just get rid of the UN and stop participating in this fucking farce. But that is not the answer. The answer is for the American people to fucking raise your voices and fucking hold your representatives accountable. We cannot allow our representatives to ignore us on this. Find your representative and hound them. You can find their information, but just by putting in your zip code and asking, what's my representative? For too long, the American people have ceded our power to the empty sociopathic suits in Washington, D.C., and we cannot allow that to continue. 2024 is a new day, friends, and this is the year that we are going to stop allowing the 1%, the oligarchs, and the fucking corporations control our government, and we are going to start controlling our government, starting with contacting our representatives every day about these issues that we've talked about today and voting all of them the fuck out. All of them the fuck out, except for Rashida Tlaib. There not only needs to be accountability, that's where it needs to start. There needs to be truth and reconciliation because the days of Palestinian erasure are over.